How does an old rich idiot in Hawaii
I want you to get out of here and save yourself because I'm just like a...
end up dead in the ocean next to Italy?
You got this.
Well, when you have more money than you need, you do some crazy. Today, we'll be recapping the story of the White Lotus. So far. So, the show is basically what would happen if you put the worst people who have ever lived in the same place for a week. From failed marriages to cheating, scandals, and a multi-million-dollar murder conspiracy, we've got it all. So buckle up and let's get into it. The show kicks off with a worried-looking man named Shane Patton waiting at an airport. A couple sitting across from him tries talking to Shane about his vacation, but Shane's not interested. He then sees the remains of a person being loaded onto his plane. And whoever it is, they died at the resort he was at, the White Lotus. We then move to a week ago and meet all the people we've been following. There's Shane and his wife, Rachel Patton. They just got married. And then we also meet the super rich Mossbacher family. The parents are the super successful Nicole and the slightly less successful Mark. And their kinda weird son, Quinn. And their mean girl daughter, Olivia. Olivia's friend Paula is there too, and she's also a mean girl. There's also the old and troubled Tanya McQuad, and together they arrive on the island where White Lotus is, and are greeted by the manager Armand and the first day trainee, the eager but kinda clumsy Lonnie. Armand is trying to be nice, but he's also giving Lonnie kind of a hard time. Everyone is seamlessly escorted to their rooms, except for Tanya, who really wants a massage. Anyway, newlyweds Rachel and Shane are about to get freaky when Shane realizes something off. They're in the wrong suite. Rachel doesn't really care, and you can see the first signs of difference. Rachel isn't from a cartoonishly rich family, so she doesn't really care about the suite being wrong. But Shane does. He cares a lot. Anyway, Lonnie helps settle Tanya in. Tanya is here to scatter her recently deceased mom's ashes, and, well, she's not exactly having a good time. Lonnie's also struggling, but for the exact opposite reason. She's pregnant, and the baby wants to join her. We then cut to the Mossbacher family. Mean girls Olivia and Paula force Olivia's brother Quinn to sleep in the kitchen because, well, mean girl stuff. Meanwhile, Lonnie tries to hold herself together and maybe not give birth on her first day on the job. And that's when Shane shows up to complain about his suite. Armand straight up lies and says he didn't book the honeymoon suite. And this conversation is upsetting Rachel, so Shane lets it go for now. We then see the Mossbacher patriarch, Mark, super worried. He thinks he has cancer. He decides to spend the day with Quinn, hoping to make some good memories in case he really is sick. That's morbid. While Mark does that, Tanya meets the masseuse, Belinda, at the spa. We see Rachel meet Paula and Olivia at the pool, trying to strike up a conversation with them. They do their best to make Rachel feel weird and out of place, and it works. Rachel is just a normal person, a journalist doing her best who happened to get married to a rich real estate guy. And now she's here. However, when Rachel takes a dip in the pool, they're kind of blown away by how attractive she is. These two are just the worst. Back with Lonnie and... her water breaks. Uh-oh. Armand doesn't see it and just thinks she's sick, so he tells her to go to his office. He then tells Mark and Quinn to go snorkeling. Meanwhile, Tanya has a healing session with Belinda, talking about her mom and her grief. The session leaves a huge impact on Tanya. She doesn't even want a massage anymore. Over with Mark, he can't stop worrying about having cancer, so he leaves Quinn to snorkel all alone. Rachel and Shane get into a little spat about the suite again, but iron it out. Mark then has a very weird but kind of wholesome heart-to-heart with his son. It's about as much emotion as you can expect from these rich sickos. Later that night, while all the guests are having dinner, Armand learns that Lonnie is having a baby in his office, and he actually feels bad for her. Luckily, the doctor is on his way. In Mean Girl Land, Paula and Olivia are having fun when Paula starts staring at one of those hotel employees because he's hot. Shane tries to bring up the suite to Armand, but he's dealing with the whole Lonnie thing. Tanya has now built a weird obsession with Belinda, and this definitely won't matter later. Mark then gets a call from his doctor, but he'll have to wait a few minutes for the results of his test. And he's worried sick. And the episode ends with Rachel and Shane, consummating their marriage. The next episode kicks off with Paula and Olivia smoking weed and being weird. Mark finds out that he doesn't have cancer, which is great, I guess. The next morning, Mark wakes up super happy, as do Tanya, Shane, and Rachel. Armand is troubled though. He can't believe he spent a whole day criticizing a pregnant lady. Armand wants a drink, but Belinda reminds him that he's been sober for 5 years and tells him to hang in there. And I think we just all need a Belinda in our lives. Back with the Mossbacher family, Mark is stoked, Olivia and Paula don't give a Olivia's mom Nicole is fixing the room's feng shui, and Quinn is butt-ass naked in the kitchen for some reason. Shane and Rachel then have a conversation about her career in journalism over breakfast, where Shane says that she doesn't have to work anymore. He's rich! Rachel is finding that notion hard to deal with, as every normal person would. Shane then tries to bring up the sweet thing with Armand again, who promises to make up for it some other way later. Meanwhile, after getting a massage from Belinda, Tanya invites her for dinner later that night, and she insists on Belinda coming. Well, Quinn is doing whatever the hell this is. Shane, you guessed it, is still fussing over the suite. Rachel sees Nicole walking by, so she decides to go over for a chat. Meanwhile, Mark sort of brute forces Quinn into spending more time with him by signing them both up for scuba diving lessons. And Quinn would rather just play video games, though. And if you, the viewer at home, love video games, you should check out our gaming channel, Jar Games. Shameless plug over. Anyway, Rachel introduces herself to Nicole. They talk, and Rachel explains her situation with Shane and her career and all of that. Nicole gives her great advice about holding on to her career and maintaining her independence, and it's going great. Until Rachel mentions she did a profile on Nicole. Turns out, Nicole hated that profile, which leads to a conversation so uncomfortable, it hurts to watch. Meanwhile, Paula and Olivia do some drugs on the beach and get ambushed by an overenthusiastic Tanya. Tanya is a yapper, so Paula and Olivia bail on her, but forget their bag with all the drugs inside. So Tanya hands the bag to an employee. Back with Armand, Shane's travel manager is on his ass about the suite when an employee brings Armand Paula's bag with the drugs inside. So Armand just stashes it away. Paula and Olivia obviously don't find the bag, so they just head to dinner, while the Mossbacher family continues to argue whether Nicole's success as a businesswoman is ethical or not. Rachel tells Shane she's going to work on an article she was offered, and she does not want to give up on her career. Shane thinks that's going to ruin their honeymoon, and he's not happy about it. While Olivia argues with her mother, Paula locks eyes with the employee from the other night, and there's some lightning here. Olivia goes to check on the bag, but Armand lies about not having it. Olivia is more interested in the fact that Paula is talking with that hot employee, though. Meanwhile, Tanya is having dinner with Belinda and keeps talking about how amazing Belinda is. Tanya then offers to bankroll Belinda for her own business, which is crazy. In between that conversation, Shane says he'll pay Rachel double what she'd get to not write the article, which is messed up on levels I can't imagine. At the Mossbacher family, Mark gives a speech about life and perspective and blah, 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 no one cares. Later that night, Nicole tries to get Olivia and Paula to let Quinn sleep in the room, but they just kick him out. Olivia asks about the guy Paula was talking to, and Paula just brushes him off as some guy. Shane then sweet-talks Rachel out of being mad and keeps calling her my wife. Is that love or possessiveness? We'll just have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Mark learns a devastating truth. See, Mark always thought his dad had died of cancer, but that's not what happened. Turns out, Mark's dad had a secret life. He was gay and he died of AIDS. Damn! Okay. Well, everyone else's lives fall apart. Quinn goes and sits on the beach and sees a whale swimming in the ocean. And the episode ends with Armand breaking his sobriety and taking one of Paula's pills. Oh boy. Episode 3 starts with Olivia waking up to see that Paula isn't with her. Turns out, Paula sneaked out to have some fun time with the guy she was talking to. When she comes back, Olivia asks where she was, and Paula lies for some reason. Meanwhile, Quinn is sleeping on the beach, and all of his gadgets get ruined by the water. What did he think was going to happen? Belinda then goes to work and talks to her son on the phone about Tanya's offer. She sees that Armand has been sleeping in his car and wakes him up. Bro is still zooted from last night. Anyway, Mark and Nicole tell Olivia, Quinn, and Paula the truth about Mark's dad. Mark's entire perception of his dad has been shattered, but Olivia calls him out, saying it's kinda homophobic to think that. Later that day, Rachel and Sean talk, and Rachel has a problem with him, well, wanting to bone all the time. Shane doesn't like that accusation, so he decides he's going to do something romantic for Rachel. Anyway, Tanya charters a boat with Armand so that she can spread her mom's ashes in the ocean. She warns Armand that she's going to be pretty sad and emotional. Armand then takes another pill and decides he's going to mess with Shane. While Mark's drowning his pain in Bloody Marys, Paula and Olivia ask Armand about the bag, and he lies again, saying he hasn't seen it. Shane then meets Armand and talks about his romantic intentions. So Armand books him a candlelit dinner, on the same boat Tanya's going to be on. Speaking of Tanya, she gets Belinda to join her on the boat, which definitely won't piss Shane off. Mark decides he's going to be totally honest with Quinn and not hide stuff like his own dad did. Then they take their scuba diving lesson. Meanwhile, Shane gets in the pool and starts messing with Paula and Olivia for some reason, which pisses Rachel off, so she just leaves. While Tanya gets super drunk, Rachel talks to Mark and asks him about his marriage with Nicole. She asks him how to keep the spark alive.
Oh, the spark? Oh, that's not alive. That died.
Thanks, Mark. A very drunk Mark then starts rattling on about his hanky-panky stories. And Rachel decides to dip. Shane then tells Rachel that he had something romantic planned, and he has no idea what's waiting for him on that boat. Sure enough, when Rachel and Shane make it to the boat for their dinner, Tanya and Belinda are there. And Tanya, being tone deaf, decides to include them in her grieving process. This is actually hilarious. Meanwhile, Mark fails to chat up some girls and is then joined by Armand, who is drinking again. Man, that's such a shame. Back on the boat, Tanya very predictably ruins Rachel and Shane's dinner to toss her mom's ashes into the ocean. She goes on a very long rant, and it's hilarious. Shane even helps Tanya open the box with the ashes in it. Tanya tosses them before she starts crying, and the rest of the boat ride is spent listening to Belinda's song, which is beautiful, to be fair. Mark is still drinking with Armand and asks Armand if he's gay. Armand says yes and gives Mark a chance to, swing a leg over the fence, but Mark declines. Shane and Rachel make it back, and Shane is furious. He starts looking for Armand. While Belinda gets Tanya into bed, Armand does even more drugs and alcohol and hits on one of his workers named Dylan, which makes him really uncomfortable. A super drunk Mark tries to get freaky with Nicole, but fails, but Rachel and Shane don't have that problem. Later that night, while Quinn stops policing himself to appreciate the view, Olivia catches Paula sneaking out and doing the thing with that hot employee. Why does she care so much? In the next episode, we see Paula talking with the dude, whose name is Kai. Kai reveals that he's one of the natives who was screwed out of their home when the White Lotus was built here. So why does he work here? Because a man's gotta make a living. Paula then explains that she's hiding this whole thing from Olivia because, well, Olivia is weird. Apparently, the second Paula has something of her own, she wants it. The next morning, Armand wakes up hungover. After a shower, he confesses everything to Belinda and promises to get off of the drugs. While the rest of the Mossbachers wake up, Quinn is on the beach admiring some ripped dudes who just got done canoeing. At the buffet, Rachel talks to Shane about her career. She realizes her journalism isn't exactly the most impactful thing in the world, so she's thinking about pivoting to a non-profit organization. They get interrupted by Tanya, who's still a weirdo. Speaking of Tanya, she tells Paula and Olivia that she gave their bag to management, and now they're pissed. They demand the bag back from Armand, who goes to get it while trying to hide from Shane. But Shane tracks him down, rips into him for sabotaging his romantic moment, and demands to speak to his manager. This sends Armand over the edge, and he decides to keep all of the drugs before returning the bag. He does that and kind of flirts with Mark before heading off. At the spa, Tanya thanks Belinda for all her support and brings up the prospect of funding Belinda's own wellness center again. And Belinda is super interested. Olivia and Paula also discover that their pills are missing, so they go to look after them. Back with Shane, Armand comes into his room with a surprise. Shane's mom, Kitty. Oh no. Rachel isn't too thrilled about it, and we can see where Shane gets his spoiled brat streak from. Luckily, she's only here a few days. Meanwhile, Mark and Quinn are taking scuba lessons. Mark confesses that he cheated on Nicole once, and it took a long time to fix that. He then tells Quinn, in so many words, to never cheat on anyone. Anyway, a man named Greg shows up in the room next to Tanya's. They chat for a bit, and Greg asks Tanya out to dinner later. She says yes, and tells Belinda to postpone their meeting till tomorrow. Anyway, Armand plays dumb when Olivia and Paula ask him about the pills. Quinn then musters the courage to go talk to the guys canoeing, and it looks like it goes okay. Good for you, you weirdo. At dinner, a clearly intoxicated Armand stares at Dylan before flirting with Mark, which is obvious to everyone except Mark. While Tanya has dinner with Greg, Armand eyes Dylan up and down. The Mossbachers argue about the struggles of the straight white man, riveting stuff, and Shane tells Kitty about Rachel's plan. But Kitty doesn't want her to get a job. Instead, she wants Rachel to plan events and throw charity parties like she does, and Rachel is not happy about it. Anyway, Paula sees Kai performing a dance at the dinner and decides to go back to her room. Oh, and Tanya and Greg totally hit it off. Meanwhile, Armand is in his office and manages to seduce Dylan. We then see Olivia talk to Kai, and I'm sure she has no bad intentions at all. Back with Rachel, she and Shane are fighting over Kitty being here, when Shane realizes something. Shane asked Armand for his boss's number, but Armand gave him a fake. So he goes to confront Armand about it, totally ignoring his fight with Rachel. While Olivia says Paula can trust her, yeah right, Shane tells Belinda he's looking for Armand. So they go to his office and, they catch him in the act. Shane just laughs. He knows Armand is toast now. Episode 5 starts with Paula and Kai getting jiggy again, this time in a hotel room. Meanwhile, Armand knows he thought he locked the door, but he clearly didn't. Dylan just gets dressed and bounces. Someone's carefree, aren't they? We then see Greg and Tanya talking. Greg will be leaving pretty soon, and Tanya's over-emotional ass can't handle it. Speaking of being emotional, Kai gives Paula a necklace and asks her to stay with him. Paula says she's going back. She can't abandon her life. However, she does say that she'll help Kai out. The next morning, Quentin's friendship with the canoe guys goes up a notch when they invite him to go canoeing with them, and he accepts. Look at the little rich guy go. Meanwhile, Mark tells Nicole that he talked to Quinn about the last time he cheated on her, and Nicole gets super mad about it. She did not want her kids to know this stuff. And a valid crash out, in my opinion. They're interrupted by Olivia, who can tell something is off. At breakfast, a new, royally screwed Armand tries to cozy up with Shane, who is dropping sneak disses and enjoying every second of it. Meanwhile, Olivia finally confronts Paula about Kai, and Paula shoots right back by saying she knows Olivia tried flirting with him. Yikes. Their fight spills over to the rest of the family, and it ends with Mark basically saying that it's stupid for anyone to insinuate that white men should give up their privilege and that they can't spend the rest of their lives feeling for the past. And there it is. You can always count on a rich man to be a piece of. So let's check in on a rich woman instead. Tanya, the buffoon she is already overthinking her relationship with Greg and ranting about it with Belinda. Belinda, however, is more interested in her business proposal, and she hands it to Tanya. Back with Armand, he finally gets Shane and Rachel out of the suite Shane wanted, but it doesn't look like Shane is going to ease up on him just yet. Meanwhile, Paula has Olivia put a necklace, not the one Kai gave her, in the family safe where they keep all their important jewelry. And Paula makes sure to eavesdrop on the safe code. While Mark and Nicole are still fighting, Tanya gets super desperate after Greg. While Tanya stalks Greg like a maniac, Rachel has the displeasure of being alone with Kitty. And through their conversation, Rachel realizes something. Kitty sees Rachel entirely as a trophy wife. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Kitty seems like she'd say that. Rachel hates that, but Kitty says it's not all bad. She's so tone deaf. Back with Paula, she meets Kai and tells him the plan. Mark and Quinn are finally going scuba diving, and the family is joining them. So, Kai can sneak in and steal some jewelry from the safe. It's super expensive, and it'll help his family hire some good lawyers. Lawyers that can help Kai get his home back. Kai doesn't want to steal, but Paula says he'd just be taking back what was taken from him before she leaves. Rachel tries calling her mom to talk, but she's busy, and Rachel is feeling super helpless. Damn. Meanwhile, the Mossbachers are ready to head out to sea. Until Mark pisses Nicole off by saying she doesn't respect him. Nicole crashes out and heads back to her room. Mark follows her, and Paula knows that's bad because Kai is supposed to be stealing their jewelry right now. Sure enough, as soon as Kai gets the jewelry, Nicole comes back to the room. So Kai covers his face and pushes her down, telling her to stay out of the way. Mark tries saving her, but gets his ass beat by Kai, who then runs away.
Call the police!
Nicole calls the police, and Armand rushes to the room as soon as he finds out. When Olivia, Quinn, and Paula come back, they're shocked to see the place covered by policemen and Mark with a beaten-up face. Paula puts two and two together and realizes she's in deep. Later that night, a depressed Tanya is sitting with Belinda. Belinda does her best to talk about the business proposal, but Tanya's too worried about Greg. Meanwhile, Rachel is realizing this marriage was a mistake. She does not belong with these people. Tanya then gets a text from Greg, who totally ditches Belinda to go see him. She's such a tool. Back with the Mossbachers, Quinn says he didn't want to scuba dive today, he wants to wait for Mark. Olivia also appreciates him, saying he's badass for saving Mom. And Nicole holds his hand, finally showing some affection. Everyone's happy, except Paula. And Olivia notices that. Kitty finally leaves the White Lotus, but not before telling Rachel to be happy. Oh, the lion, the witch, the audacity of this bitch! We then see Tanya making out with Greg, yuck, before she stops him. She starts ranting about how she's super dysfunctional and needy and all that stuff, but Greg says he doesn't care, and Tanya is thrilled. While Mark and Nicole kiss after, I don't know how long it's been. Armin and Belinda share a drink, both miserable for entirely different reasons. Rachel tells Shane she's made a huge mistake, but Shane doesn't realize what she said because he's too busy reading. The episode ends with Olivia not so subtly accusing Paula of having something to do with the robbery. And Paula is sweating bullets. The episode starts with Quinn joining his canoeing buddies at the ass crack of dawn. He's really into this stuff. Rachel wakes up overwhelmed by everything, and she goes to the spa to avoid Shane. Back with the Mossbachers, Olivia is sorta confronting Paula when they're interrupted by the sound of Nicole and Mark getting freaky. Oh, nightmare fuel. But Nicole and Mark are happy, so I guess that counts for something. Greg and Tanya also wake up, and they're pretty chipper too. Though Greg does keep coughing a lot. He says it's the cigars, but I don't know. While Nicole and Mark tell Shane all about what happened yesterday at breakfast. Rachel is crying at the spa. Belinda counsels her and gives Rachel her card to call if she needs anything. Meanwhile, Quinn comes back and announces he wants to stay here in Hawaii. He doesn't care about gadgets or gaming anymore, and he doesn't have a life back home anyway. And it's a resounding no from Nicole and Mark, and Quinn is pissed. We then see Rachel finally confront Shane. She gives it to him straight. It took her this long to realize that she doesn't want to be Shane's +1 her entire life, and thinks this marriage is a mistake. Shane is stunned, mostly because he's a self-absorbed asshole, and lashes out at Rachel. But Rachel shoots back, calling him a man-child who's coddled by his mom all the time, and who threw a tantrum over a damn sweet. Shane then walks away, saying Rachel better be sure she wants to do this. Armin then catches the Mossbachers before they go scuba diving. Turns out, their jewelry has been recovered and the culprit has been caught. Yep, they got Kai. And Paula is screwed. We then see Tanya and Greg make plans for the future. Looks like their fling is gonna last a while. Mark and Quinn then finally go scuba diving, and they love it. Paula is having a less than stellar time though. After puking her guts out, she throws away the necklace Kai gave her and cries. Damn. While Shane goes back to his room and pretends nothing happened, Armin gets a call telling him he's about to get fired. So he goes scorched earth. He gets Dylan in his office and decides he's going on one last bender. Olivia then finally asks Paula about helping Kai steal from them and genuinely wants to talk about it. But Paula says Olivia is just like the rest of these rich white assholes, and they're not really friends. Olivia starts crying, goes to her parents' room, and hugs Nicole. This is all so uncomfortable to watch. Sometime later, Tanya visits Belinda at the spa and tells her all about Greg, before dropping the bomb on her. Tanya has decided that she doesn't want another transactional relationship in her life, so she's not funding Belinda's business. Belinda is heartbroken, obviously, so Tanya gives her a fat wad of cash before she just leaves. What an absolutely horrible person. We then see Armand, who's high as a kite. He goes out to host his last dinner and seems relieved. Turns out, he hates this place. Shane tries to fix things with Rachel, but it's not working, and he's pissed. Back with the Mossbachers, Quinn brings up wanting to stay again, but his parents say no. Then they start talking about buying a boat and being a boat family, which just alienates Paula from them even more. Back with Rachel, she tells Shane she always feels alone with him. So he tells her to be alone and leaves her there. While Shane gets drunk, Armin continues his bender, getting absolutely wasted. Greg mentions he has some health issues to Tanya, while Belinda gets a call from Rachel. We then see Olivia hug Paula, who sorta apologizes for everything, and I don't even know how to address any of that. Armand then makes his way over to Shane and Rachel's room before opening Shane's bag. Oh boy. Rachel has gotten her own room and tells everything to Belinda, who doesn't have the patience to give advice anymore.
I'm all out.
Well, back with Armand, he takes a dump in Shane's bag. But Shane walks out a few seconds later. Armand hides and Shane calls management, explaining what happened. Armand tries to sneak out, but Shane hears someone and thinks he's in danger. So he grabs a knife and accidentally stabs Armand in the chest. Shane apologizes and calls for help, but it's too late. Armand kicks the can. Oh, the next day, Shane clears everything out with the police. Rich men never go to jail, silly. Quinn cries at the beach while Tanya spreads the rest of her mom's ashes. And so we get to the end of season 1, where Shane is at the airport, Rachel shows up, and in a moment that just kills me, decides to stay with Shane. Oh, come on, man! The Mossbachers then board their plane, except for Quinn, who just runs away. While Belinda has to resume her daily life, Quinn is straight up chilling with the canoers. He's found his people. And so, season 1 ends. Season 2 starts off in Sicily at another White Lotus resort. The very rich Daphne Sullivan tells some woman about how it's her last day at the resort and how she loved everything. She then goes for one final swim, only to find a dead body in the ocean. Later, the resort manager, Valentina, shows up, and one of her employees, named Rocco, gives her some bad news. Multiple guests have been found dead. We then shift to 1 week ago and see everyone making their way to the resort. There's the recently got rich couple of Harper Spiller and Ethan Spiller, as well as the traditionally rich, white, and oblivious couple, Cameron Sullivan and Daphne Sullivan. We also have Hollywood hotshot Christopher Moltisanti, Dominic Di Grasso, and his super flirtatious dad, Bert Di Grasso, and Dominic's super nice son, Albie Di Grasso. Tanya's back too, barf, along with her cute but miserable assistant, Portia. We then meet 2 girls in Sicily, the eccentric and super confident Lucia and the shy and sweet Mia. They're both, they're escorts. Mia is depressed over some guy, so Lucia drags her to the port. Apparently, she's been in contact with one of the guests we've mentioned for some premium hanky-panky. Anyway, resort manager Valentina greets the guests, and it looks like the Spillers and the Sullivans are vacationing together. They even have connecting rooms. Unfortunately, it looks like Harper isn't a huge fan of the Sullivans. This leads to an awkward moment where there'll be plenty more of that. We then see the Di Grazos, who are all staying in different rooms. Bert can't stop flirting with the employee there, and Dominic has to stop him. They're here to visit Bert's grandma's hometown, but we're not there just yet. Anyway, Tanya meets Greg at the resort, and they're married now. Greg notices Portia and loses his mind. He doesn't want Tanya's assistant poking around on their romantic getaway, but Tanya says she'll need Portia, so she tells Portia to stay in her room all week, which is just cruel.
You're gonna have to get lost. Okay.
We then see a conversation between the newly rich couple, Harper and Ethan. She makes it clear she thinks the Sullivans are performative and says Cameron only invited them here because he wants something from Ethan. And Ethan just begs her to put more effort in. While Portia handles Tanya's stuff, Silicon, Lucia, and Mia try sneaking into the White Lotus. But Valentina catches them and has them thrown out. Bummer. We then see Dominic call his wife on the phone, and from the conversation, we can tell that all those bridges have been burned. She hates Dominic, and so does Dominic's daughter. Later, by the pool, Portia rants about being stuck in her room in Italy to her friend on the phone. Dominic's son Albie can tell she's upset, and he asks her if she's okay, and they start talking. Meanwhile, the Spillers and Sullivans have drinks. And it's awkward. It's always awkward. Anyway, Albie and Portia's conversation is interrupted when Bert falls, and they rush to pick him up. He's okay though, and starts flirting with Portia. Oh my goodness, give it a rest, you old fart. While Tanya and Greg bump uglies, the Spiller-Sullivan session continues. Ethan and Harper realize that the Sullivans don't watch the news or vote. Like I said, completely tone deaf. Cameron lost his bag on the way here, so Ethan says he can borrow one of his swimsuits. And Cameron goes with Harper to the room to get it. Tanya then ruins their smushing booty session by saying some weird esoteric nonsense, and Greg complains about her being fat. What? We then see Harper give Cameron a pair of swim trunks, and he proceeds to change right behind her. That's just weird and creepy as hell. We then see Lucia and Mia standing outside of the resort. Mia is still hung up on her ex, but Lucia convinces her to make the most of her chances right now. They then see an opening and sneak into the resort. Later that night, while a man named Giuseppe sings at dinner, Lucia and Mia get all dolled up and join the party. Tanya and Greg show up for dinner, and Tanya's horrified to see Portia here. She tells Portia to go to her room, but the poor girl says she needs to eat. Anyway, Bert keeps flirting with the waitress, and Albie argues with him and Dominic about how old you should be when you just stop boning. Lucia and Mia make it to dinner, while the Spiller-Sullivan saga continues. This time, Harper puts in more of an effort, so things are a bit smoother. Tanya then forces Portia to leave, and she storms out. Lucia leaves to meet her client and escapes getting nabbed by Valentina. While Portia stuffs her face and stalks Albie online, Albie gets away from Bert, who just keeps farting. Come on, man. Lucia then meets her client, and it's Dominic. We then see Giuseppe talk to Mia, and Mia's impressed with the singing and says she can sing and play the piano too. But Giuseppe only wants to get in her pants, and Mia does not appreciate that. Back with Cameron and Daphne, they start messing around, and the noise travels all the way to the Spillers. Ethan and Harper agree that the Sullivans are total who live in a bubble, but Ethan says they should enjoy themselves all the same. Harper then tells Ethan about the whole Cameron changing thing, but Ethan says it's not that weird. It really is. And while Greg ignores Tanya, Dominic rants about everything to Lucia. Lucia mentions how going to LA is her dream and that she can't afford it before they start getting jiggy with it. The next episode starts with Ethan waking up super early for a run. Lucia leaves Dominic at the same time. But at the same time, Cameron and Daphne wake up, and Ethan's already worked up a huge sweat. Greg keeps ignoring Tanya, and Valentina is watching all over the resort like a hawk. Portia sees Greg and Tanya at breakfast, so she bails and sits with Albie. Harper is forced to have breakfast with Cameron and Daphne, while Bert and Dominic join Albie and Portia. Bert then starts rambling about how Dominic's wife, Abby, is missing the trip because she's mad at Dominic. Bert then says his wife wouldn't have done this, and it's pretty awkward. Anyway, while Harper is disgusted over how perfect Cameron and Daphne's marriage is, Ethan goes back to his room and spends some quality time alone with himself and his hand. Over with Tanya, she explains her dream day in Italy to Greg, who agrees to do all the stuff she says. The DeGrazzos invite Portia to join them on their trip all around town today, and she says yes. Harper then walks in on Ethan straight jorking it, and they have a little argument about that. Harper continues her rant about the Sullivans being fake and how their relationship is way better because they talk about things.
I agree. 100%.
Later, Portia joins the DeGrazzos while Dominic stays back. He introduces Mia and Lucia to Valentina and has their names added to the rooms, saying they're his guests. While the Spillers and Sullivans enjoy the beach and more awkward conversations, Lucia and Mia start shopping with Dominic's money. Tanya and Greg leave for Tanya's dream date on a Vespa. That is pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. And back with Cameron, he asks Ethan and Harper what it's like being rich. Ethan and Harper say it hasn't changed a lot, they just have the ability to help people now. Cameron and Daphne start boasting about helping charities and stuff too, and Cameron says they're not materialistic pigs like Harper thinks. Harper says she doesn't think that and immediately heads out for a swim. Meanwhile, Portia and the DeGrazzos are enjoying their tour when Bert brings up the whole Abby thing again. And Dominic is pissed. We then see Cameron prank Harper in the water before apologizing. He says he just wants Harper to like him and Daphne, and it looks like he's making a genuine effort. We get a quick look at Tanya and Greg enjoying their Vespa date. Well, Tanya's enjoying it. Greg is being bear hugged to death. Later that night, Lucia and Mia dress up and head to dinner. Mia talks to Giuseppe again and says she's a singer. She then plays a song on the piano to prove it, and she's pretty good. The best thing about the scene is how proud and supportive Lucia is of her. That's a real friend right there. Albie and Portia go out to dinner, so of course, Tanya and Greg end up in the same place. Portia decides to stay there. Anyway, a dinner conversation makes it clear that the Spillers have way more conflict than the Sullivans. It looks like they're genuinely perfect for each other. At dinner, Bert is more nice about Dominic's situation with Abby and tries to give him advice on hiding his affairs. They're both sacks full of. Sure enough, Abby tells Portia that his dad has cheated on his mom a lot and just got caught again. And then they totally flirt with each other. At Tanya's table, Greg drops some bad news. He has to go back to Denver for his job, and it's only for 2 days, but Tanya throws a total tantrum and leaves. After that, Albie drops Portia off at her room, but not before they share a kiss. Aww. Shifting back to the Spillers, Harper apologizes for being such a buzzkill and promises to be more normal from now on. Oh, and Cameron and Daphne are still disgustingly in love. Lucia then visits Dominic, who says he's been feeling guilty about this whole thing. But Mia's there too, and Dominic has no self-control, so he lets them in, and they get freaky. Meanwhile, Tanya wakes up and sees Greg on the phone, and it looks like he's having an affair. Episode 3 starts with Valentina rejecting some dude while she has her morning coffee. Harper wakes up and decides he's going to be the life of the party today. We'll see how long that lasts. While Greg packs his things, Lucia and Mia leave Dominic's room, but Bert sees them leaving. Oh, brother. Ethan and Harper then join Cameron and Daphne at breakfast, while Harper is making a genuine effort. Bert confronts Dominic about Lucia and Mia, while Portia rants to Albie about everything, feeling so fake these days. I hear ya, sister. Back with Harper, and Daphne wants to go to No-Tell. Cameron has already booked jet skiing for himself and Ethan, so Harper agrees to go with Daphne. This is gonna be funny. Over with the DeGrazzos, Bert has planned a tour to visit all the locations in The Godfather, which sounds pretty freaking cool, and Albie makes sure Portia is going to join them. A few tables over, Tanya is throwing a tantrum over Greg leaving. Yeesh. Mia and Lucia go shopping, and Harper and Daphne head out to No-Tell. Meanwhile, Albie argues with Bert and Dominic about The Godfather. To Albie, The Godfather just perpetuates an unrealistic male fantasy that isn't healthy. Anyway, Portia is called away by Tanya, who's having a full-on meltdown. But Albie blames Dominic and Bert for pushing her away. Harper and Daphne make it to No-Tell, where Daphne reveals that she's booked a palazzo for the night. Harper's gonna be staying with her. Oh boy. Back with their husbands, Cameron not so subtly asks Ethan to let him make money for them by investing with Cameron. Looks like Harper was right about one thing. While Tanya books a tarot card reader, Daphne calls Cameron and tells him they're staying the night, just to make him jealous. Daphne says it's a back and forth thing they have to keep things interesting. Cameron is a little pissed, but says that just means he and Ethan can have more fun. Oh, and Tanya kicks the tarot lady out when she says Greg is in love with someone else. She also mentions that Tanya will Alt F for herself in Italian. Keep that in mind. The DeGrassos make it back to the resort, and Albie gives it to Dominic straight. If he wants to mend things with Abby, he's going to have to change. A depressed Tanya forces Portia to sit in her room while she takes a nap. She needs a new job, while Valentina has lunch and feeds some cats. Aww. Harper and Daphne are living it up in No-Tell. They both take an edible, and Daphne talks about how lonely it must be being a man. I'm sure these two would beg to differ. Later that night, Dominic meets Lucia and Mia and says he has to end their affair. So Lucia and Mia have to find another rich man now. And a worker named Isabella tells Valentina she admires her and wants to be just like her, while Cameron tells Ethan that everyone cheats and it's totally normal. These people are the worst. Portia tells Tanya and Albie about how he might be a bit too nice, but Tanya actually gives her good advice, telling her not to spend her life chasing emotionally unavailable men. Giuseppe then sits with Mia and says he could help her music career for a price. Disgusting old man. Anyway, that's for later. For now, Lucia and Mia end at Cameron and Ethan's table, and they're about to have some fun. Back with Harper, she's still zooted. And Daphne tells her that Cameron's other friends are like monsters who cheat and exploit all the time. I don't think Daphne realizes that Cameron is the same. Meanwhile, Portia is eyeing up a hot guy at the pool when Albie comes and meets her. They share a beer and a couple of kisses, but Portia is distracted by the hot guy. So she just says she's gonna go back to her room. Dominic heads back to his room, and Tanya goes back to hers, both depressed for different reasons. Daphne then tells Harper that she knows Cameron cheats sometimes, so she does whatever she wants. That way, she doesn't feel resentful. We then see Ethan and Cameron party with Lucia and Mia, but when it comes time to do the deed, Ethan rejects Mia. Not Cameron, though. He and Lucia are hanking all the pankies. The following episode sees Cameron wake up next to Mia and Lucia, and Project Walk of Shame is a go. In the next room, Ethan talks to Harper on the phone, and she can tell something's weird. We get a glimpse of Valentina being protective of Isabella now before we head to breakfast. Portia apologizes to Albie for last night and says they'll definitely hang out today. She then pours her heart out for Tanya and asks her for permission to hang out with Albie. And this is Tanya's response.
I don't know what's going on with Greg, but I think it's bull.
A genuine piece of... A rich British man named Quentin, who happens to be gay, then invites Tanya to hang out with them later, while Lucia and Mia sit by the pool. Lucia feels horrible. She thinks she dragged Mia into this, but Mia says it's fine. She then takes Lucia to Bert's room. He's not there right now, so they can shower and change. Ethan pukes his guts out while Harper and Daphne talk over breakfast. It's an awkward conversation, but Daphne does say she trusts Harper, so there's that, I guess. Anyway, Bert comes back to his room as Lucia and Mia are leaving, which is kind of funny. Tanya then drags Portia to meet Quentin and his friends, and the hot guy from last night is there too. His name is Jack, and he's Quentin's nephew. Albie goes to the beach and sees Portia talking to Jack, and Portia seems to be enjoying herself. Damn it, Portia! Tanya talks to Quentin and tells him all about herself. And Harper and Daphne make it back to the resort. Harper tells Ethan about how Cameron and Daphne's relationship is super fake and that they're okay. She then finds a condom wrapper on the sofa, but hides it. Whew, this isn't gonna end well. Meanwhile, Albie is tired of waiting for Portia, so he goes to meet her and Jack. But Portia sorta blows him off for using Tanya as an excuse, and the poor guy just walks back, defeated. Albie then sits down for lunch with Bert and Dominic. Dominic tries to get Albie to talk to Abby about getting the family back together, so Albie walks out of lunch too. The Sullivans and Spillers sit down for lunch, and Harper is clearly stressed about what she found. Meanwhile, Mia decides she's gonna sleep with Giuseppe to kickstart her music career. And thanks, Lucia, for giving her the courage to do it. Oh, and Quentin and Tanya are still talking. Albie is then visited by Lucia, they talk for a bit, and decide to go swimming. Meanwhile, Mia agrees to do the deed with Giuseppe, so he takes her to the resort's church. They're gonna go to hell. One problem, though, Giuseppe can't, perform, so Mia goes to get him a pill to help him out. Unfortunately, she ends up giving him LSD or something instead of what he needed. While Tanya socializes some more, Harper is questioning her entire marriage. Oh, and Giuseppe is high off of his socks right now. Harper then asks Ethan about what he did yesterday, and Ethan is less than honest about it. Their conversation is interrupted by the Sullivans. It's time for dinner. Portia and Tanya then join Quentin and his people for dinner, and Jack is totally flirting with Portia. Albie then says he's having dinner with someone, so Dominic and Bert end up alone. Bert tells Dominic about Lucia and Mia being in his room. Giuseppe then passes out, and they have to call an ambulance. Valentina then gives Isabella a gift, but is interrupted by the ambulance showing up. Lucia and Mia realize Mia gave him Molly, but Albie shows up, so it's time to party. Dominic sees Albie with Lucia and Mia, and the look on his face is priceless. While Harper is dissociating at dinner, Quentin invites Tanya to join them on a cruise. They'll even find her a man. Oh, brother. Jack and Portia head to the bar and start drinking, and so it begins. Portia's and Albie's game of making each other feel jealous. Jack kisses Portia, and Albie wants to leave, but Lucia says he can't let Portia win, and kisses Albie. For some reason, Portia acts surprised, so she and Jack go to her room. Meanwhile, Harper asks Ethan again, and he says Cameron asked him to invest money with him, and nothing else. Jack and Portia then get busy, as do Lucia and Albie. The next morning, Harper finally confronts Ethan about the condom, and he comes clean. Ethan says he didn't want to tell her because Cameron said not to, and apologizes for hiding it from her. It's going to take a while to get over that, though. Meanwhile, Albie realizes that Lucia is an escort when she asks for money, even though she's super apologetic about it. Albie says he'll pay her later, and says he wants to see her again. While Tanya rambles to Portia, Albie tells Dominic he needs some money, and Dominic figures out why Lucia and Mia walk by them. Anyway, Cameron says he's booked some wine tasting for the day, and Harper makes it clear that she knows what Cameron did. Mia tries to get Valentina to let her play piano at dinner, but Valentina is not having it. Dominic then tells Lucia not to say anything about him to Albie, and she agrees. Portia and Albie meet as Portia's heading out with Tanya and Quentin to Palermo. She's gonna be gone for 2 days, and the two awkwardly acknowledge what happened last night and say goodbye. Valentina then meets Isabella again, and it looks like she's becoming very possessive of her. She especially doesn't like Rocco, whose place is at the reception with Isabella. The Spiller-Sullivan wine tasting is off to a great start too, and I say that sarcastically, because Harper is planning to get really drunk. Anyway, while Tanya chats with Quentin on the boat, Jack and Portia get busy again. Anyway, Valentina moves Rocco away from the reception since he talks to Isabella too much. Now she's being crazy. Back with Harper, she starts asking crazy questions like if Ethan and Cameron have ever been with the same girl. This leads to some arguing between Ethan and Cameron, and it's pretty awkward. Anyway, while Portia lives it up on the boat, Albie ditches his family to spend time with Lucia. And Dominic is super worried. Ethan tells Cameron about the condom wrapper, and Cameron knows he messed up big time. Tanya and Portia then make it to Quentin's villa, and Quentin says they should all go to the opera. Jack and Portia are totally ditching them though. While Lucia and Albie have fun, Dominic walks on the beach and, seeing couples, he misses his wife. Should have thought about that before cheating, jackass. Back at the resort, Valentina puts a new guy next to Isabella, and she doesn't seem to be too thrilled about it. Quentin takes Tanya to the opera, while Jack and Portia hang out. The Spillers and the Sullivans head out to dinner, and Lucia sees Cameron. They go to the side, and she asks Cameron for the rest of her money because he still owes her. Cameron says he'll pay her later, and Albie is really worried about Lucia because she said she's in trouble with her handler. Meanwhile, Dominic and Bert have a lovely conversation where Bert blames Dominic for Albie going after escorts. Dominic flips it back on Bert, saying he normalized it and Dominic's mom was always miserable. And Bert just denies that, saying he had a perfect marriage. Yeah, right. Anyway, Cameron Uno reverses Harper and starts asking her about the wild things she did in college. Cameron then touches Harper's leg, but she pushes him away. Then she gets super unhinged, talking about Ethan pleasing himself and getting even more drunk. Over at the reception, Mia convinces Valentina to let her sing and play the piano by agreeing to bone her. Yep, Valentina likes girls. Back with Jack and Portia, they dine and dash, and they're having a great time. While Quentin and Tanya love the opera, Harper talks to Daphne. Harper says she thinks Ethan and Cameron did something, and Daphne's response is simple. Harper should do whatever it takes to make herself feel better about the situation. That is horrible advice. Lucia and Albie are enjoying some ice cream when they're interrupted by some dude named Alessio. He knows Lucia and asks her why she won't return his calls, rather aggressively at that. Meanwhile, Quentin talks to Tanya about his past and how he once loved a cowboy. They're really getting along. Portia and Jack make it back, and Jack tells her to wait. He has something to do for his uncle. Mia sings at dinner, while Harper and Cameron give each other this weird look. Dominic tries calling Abby, while Albie and Lucia get freaky. Meanwhile, Tanya wakes up and starts exploring the mansion, and she ends up seeing what Quentin needed Jack for. There's no other way to put this. Jack is straight boning his uncle. Episode 6 starts with Ethan insisting he did nothing to Harper, who's having it hard to believe. But Harper's less worried about the cheating and more about the fact that it seems Ethan isn't attracted to her anymore and that they have lost their spark. And Ethan isn't doing a great job of convincing her otherwise. Cameron and Daphne, though, are super chill. Back with Tanya, she tries to hint to Portia that Jack might not really be Quentin's nephew, but Quentin shows up before Tanya can finish. Over with the DeGrassos, today's the day they visit Bert's grandma's hometown, and Albie says he got them a translator. Ethan gets back from his run and is cornered by Lucia and Mia, who want their money. Unfortunately, Harper sees them talking, and she's pissed. Over at the reception, Valentina tells Isabella it's her birthday and asks Isabella if she'd like to join her for drinks later, and Isabella agrees to come. Harper tells Ethan that she saw him talking to Lucia and Mia, and Ethan says he'll explain it later. Meanwhile, Portia and Jack head out, and Quentin watches them leave. Yeah, he's up to something. Back with the DeGrassos, it turns out Lucia is Albie's translator, to Dominic's shock and horror. Dominic puts up a front, but he's clearly not okay with it. At the beach, Ethan tells Cameron to vouch for him and Harper and tell her the truth. Daphne leaves for a massage, and Harper joins Cameron to get some drinks. Portia talks with Jack and realizes he's a pampered, oblivious guy who lives in a bubble. Meanwhile, Ethan can't stand Harper and Cameron talking, so he goes for a swim. While that's happening, Lucia finds out from some locals that a family named DeGrasso do live here, so they go to check it out. Unfortunately, they get followed by Alessio and some of his men. Lucia says she has to go with them and says she'll meet Albie later tonight. I hope she's okay. We then see Ethan get out of the water, and Cameron and Harper are gone. He goes to his room and sees Harper there. He thinks Cameron was in the room, and Harper just calls him paranoid. And now it's Ethan who's losing his mind over whether his partner is cheating or not. Meanwhile, Dominic, Bert, and Albie make it to the DiGrasso's home, but they don't get a very warm welcome. Back at the beach, Ethan asks Harper why she's so happy all of a sudden. And Harper says that Cameron confirmed everything Ethan said, so she's good now. While Portia realizes Jack is a raging alcoholic, Quentin takes Tanya to the party he's hosting. It's super posh, and he introduces her to Nicolo, a very handsome young man. With that, they get their party started. Meanwhile, Isabella asks Valentina to bring Rocco back to the front desk. Why? Because he's her boyfriend. This is heartbreaking for Valentina. She clearly had a thing for Isabella, so she decides to ditch going out with Isabella and just heads home. At dinner, Ethan confronts Cameron about flirting with his wife, and Cameron acts like he's crazy. Their wives come back before they can talk anymore, so we'll have to wait on that. Valentina heads to the hotel bar and she gets a drink, while Mia sings. Meanwhile, Bert is super depressed. He's expected some sort of homecoming in Italy, but he didn't get one from his own extended family. And he's upset. Over with Tanya, she goes on an absolute bender with Nicolo and Quentin's guests. At least someone's having fun. While Valentina and Mia agree to do the deed in the empty suite. Lucia meets Albie. She says she owes Alessio some money, and that she wishes all men were as kind as Albie. While Valentina and Mia get it on, Jack is absolutely wasted. He tells Portia they'll just stay in a hotel. Back with Ethan, he just can't get the thought of Harper cheating on him out of his head. Tanya keeps having fun, but Portia doesn't. A very drunk Jack starts rambling about Quentin. How Quentin's not really rich, how he saved Jack from a bad place, how Jack has to do things sometimes that he doesn't like. Jack then says Quentin's going after the money before he passes out. I have a bad feeling about this. The final episode of Season 2 starts with Ethan not being able to get the image of Cameron and Harper out of his mind. Over with Albie and Lucia, Albie says he'll help Lucia get out of this mess. He'll take her back to LA with him. But the look on Lucia's face is one of guilt. She's hiding something. Meanwhile, Dominic is looking at pictures of his family and he starts crying. Maybe he does want to change. We then see Tanya wake up and join Quentin and his buddies for breakfast. They were whispering when she showed up. Keep that in mind. Anyway, Portia wakes up to find her phone missing, and Jack is acting nonchalant about it. Then he drags her into bed, and won't let her get up. Oh boy. Back at the resort, Valentina and Mia are woken up by room service, and Valentina rushes to get ready. But it's clear she had a good time. We then see the Spillers and Sullivans have breakfast, and Harper says what we've all been thinking.
You're an idiot.
We then see Albie ask Dominic for 50,000 euros to help out Lucia. Dominic says no at first, but when Albie says he'll vouch for Dominic with Abby, Dominic agrees in a heartbeat. While Valentina brings Rocco back to the front desk, Tanya goes to Quentin's room. There, she sees a photo of a young Quentin with a cowboy. Quentin says that the cowboy's name is Steve and that they used to hang out back in the day. And Tanya mentions that Steve looks a lot like Greg. Meanwhile, Ethan finally confronts Harper about what had happened between her and Cameron. It takes some pushing, but Harper eventually spills. She says that she and Cameron kissed, but it was like for 2 seconds, and she regretted it instantly. Ethan still doesn't buy that's all that happened, but now he has an excuse to fight Cameron. So he heads out to the beach where Cameron is swimming and starts throwing hands, and the fight is broken up by some dude. Meanwhile, Portia secretly uses Jack's phone to call Tanya. She tells Tanya she has a feeling something bad is going to happen, and Tanya decides now is a good time to tell her about Jack boning Quentin. Portia then says something fishy is happening, and Tanya realizes something. Maybe the guy in the photo really was Greg. I mean, he did insist on them coming to Sicily. You see, Tanya signed a prenup with Greg. If they got divorced, Greg gets nothing. But if Tanya dies, he gets everything. The conversation is cut short by Jack, who insists Portia spend the day with him and go back to the hotel the following day. Tanya, meanwhile, is super uncomfortable right now, as anyone would be if they thought they were going to be murdered. Back with Ethan, he sees Daphne on the beach and they talk. Ethan tells her he thinks something happened between Cameron and Harper, and Daphne says not to read into it too much. As she says, you can love someone without knowing everything about them, and a little mystery keeps the spark going. She then tells Ethan to join her for a walk, and he does. Meanwhile, Tanya and Quentin make it back to the ocean by the resort, where Quentin says Nicolo will escort her back in a while. And Tanya is stressed. Later, Mia meets Valentina at the bar, and she says she's going to make sure to introduce Valentina to some girls and get her a proper girlfriend. That's when Giuseppe comes back, and Valentina has to make a choice. She does just that, firing Giuseppe on the spot and giving Mia the job. And no, I do not feel sorry for him. Meanwhile, Portia confronts Jack about stealing her phone and getting jiggy with Quentin, so Jack just says he'll drive her back. While that's happening, Tanya is trying her best to find a way off the boat and back to shore. But the captain doesn't speak English, and Nicolo shows up. At dinner, Cameron finally pays Lucia, and Ethan and Harper have to bear Cameron and Daphne for one last dinner, where Cameron toasts to friendship, as if Ethan didn't punch him like 4 hours ago. Meanwhile, Dominic transferred the money to Lucia, and Albie's already put in a word for him with Abby. They're both happy now. Back with Tanya, she has dinner with Quentin, Nicolo, and his friends. Quentin says she can leave anytime she wants now, but Tanya is scared. So she asks for more wine and decides to stay a bit. While she's struggling, Harper and Ethan make it back to their room. Harper asks Ethan what's going to happen to them, and Ethan responds by getting freaky with her. I hate this show. Albie and Lucia do the same, while Dominic calls and has a chat with Abby. Meanwhile, Jack drops Portia off, but not at the resort. He tells Portia to stay away from the resort and to just get on her plane tomorrow and go back home. Jack's involved with some dangerous people, and he doesn't want her to end up in a bad situation. With that, Jack gives Portia her phone and drives off. Meanwhile, Tanya decides to do something about her situation. So she grabs Nicolo's bag, takes out the gun inside, and starts shooting. When she's done, she shot Nicolo and Quentin. She asks Quentin to confirm he was going to kill her, but Quentin kicks the bucket before he can answer. Tanya then tries to jump onto a speedboat and get out of there.
You got this.
She, in fact, did not got this. And so this miserable old hag meets her end, and no one gives a damn. The next day, Lucia leaves before Albie wakes up. Yep, he got played. And that takes us to the start of episode 1, where Daphne finds the bodies in the water. Specifically, she finds Tanya. The police show up, the bodies get transported, all of that jazz. And at the airport, we see the Sullivans and the Spillers. And they both seem happy. Albie then meets Portia at the airport, and they kinda sorta tell each other what happened before they exchange numbers. We then see Lucia and Mia strolling through the streets where they cheerfully meet Alessio. He was a friend all along. Well, all's well that ends well. Season 3 starts in White Lotus in Thailand with a guy named Zion. Zion is trying to get a meditation session in with a helper when suddenly they hear gunshots. Bullets fly everywhere, windows break, and all hell breaks loose. Zion runs over towards the gunshots. After all, his mom is there too. He prays for his mom's safety before he sees a body floating towards him. We then jump to a week ago with the boat making its way to Thailand's White Lotus. And look who's on it. It's Belinda. We have a whole new cast to follow. Among them are the 3 friends, Kate Bohr, Laurie Duffy, and the famous actress Jacqueline Lemon. Then there's the Ratliff family. The resident wealthy dad Timothy and his cheery wife Victoria. Their kids are there too. The oldest son, Saxon, who's a total douche, their daughter Piper, who's kinda reserved, and the youngest, Lachlan, who seems like a sweet boy. There's also the classic young girl Chelsea, no relation to the Ratliffs, and her grumpy old rich boyfriend, Rick Hatchett. We then see a worker at the resort, the kind and gorgeous Mook, hitch a ride with a security guard named Guy Dog, and get to work. She gets there just in time to receive the guests. The guests are welcomed by the resort manager, the always frightened Fabian, and one of the owners, a distinguished old lady named Kun Sitala. As we already saw, Belinda's there too. Apparently, she's going to learn about wellness stuff and take it back with her to Hawaii. We then see the Ratliffs check out of the rooms, and they're stoked, until they learn the rooms have no Wi-Fi. Anyway, we get to learn about the family a bit more. Saxon, as I mentioned, is basically just horrible, while Piper is more in tune with the world and herself. A spiritual person. There's some tension between them, and it results in both of them asking Lachlan, also known as Lockie, to join them for an activity. But Lockie just says he'll join both of them, diffusing the situation. We then cut to Rick and Chelsea. Chelsea is in a super chipper mood, but Rick is pissed. He asks Mook where Kunsitala's husband is, and Mook tells him he's not at the resort. This upsets Rick even more, and he immediately starts drinking. While Chelsea is here to enjoy a vacation, it's clear that Rick is here with an ulterior motive. And he seems like a dangerous man. Meanwhile, Lori, Kate, and Jacqueline are having fun together. They're longtime friends and claim to love each other a lot. But you can already see that Kate is a bit jealous of Jacqueline's young looks, and Lori is jealous of both of them. More on that later. While Belinda gets acclimated to the place, outside the resort, we see Guy Talk talking to Mook, and it's clear he's head over heels for her. Over at the pool, Saxon is looking for some ladies to hit on. He sees a gorgeous young woman sitting by the pool, so he hops out. Meanwhile, Lockie visits a monastery with Piper. Piper needs to interview the monk there for her thesis, but says she doesn't feel like doing it today. So Lockie heads back to the pool. Meanwhile, Tim Ratliff gets a message from the Wall Street Journal, which he thinks is strange. Shortly after that, Lockie joins Saxon. Saxon proceeds to try hitting on Jacqueline and her friends, as well as the girl next to him, and gets a hard no on both fronts. So Saxon just tells Lockie it's a numbers game. Whatever helps you sleep at night, buddy. While all of that's happening, a worker named Pornchai helps Belinda settle in, and she tells the worker that her son will be joining her too. Fast forward to dinner, and Lachlan's university comes up. Lachlan got into both Duke, where Tim went, and UNC, where Victoria went. And both parents want him to go to their alma mater. Tim then gets a call, and he has to go to the lobby to attend it. Meanwhile, Rick is miserable. He needs to meet Kunsilata's husband, but can't find a way to do it. Speaking of Kunsilata, she talks to Jacqueline and her friends because it turns out she's a huge fan of Jacqueline's. Rick decides he's had enough of this, so he heads out for a smoke, leaving Chelsea alone. Meanwhile, Tim answers his call. Turns out the Wall Street Journal is doing a piece on a company called Ciao. Tim created it with his buddy Kenneth Nguyen back in the day. And it sounds like good old Kenneth now has some shady ties to the Brunei government. Yikes. Tim brushes it off and ends the call, but he makes sure to leave Kenneth a message. He then walks back and has a lovely interaction with Rick on his way out.
How's your night?
Tim then goes back to enjoying dinner with his family, while Rick looks at pictures of Kunsilata's husband. We also see Chelsea befriend a model named Chloe. They hit it off, and Chloe says she's also mad at her boyfriend. When we see her boyfriend, and it's Greg! Son of a gun! Over to the side, Belinda talks to her son on the phone that he'll be joining her in a few days. Later, Lori, Ken, and Jacqueline are talking about their lives. Jacqueline is obviously a famous actress, and Kate is married to a super wealthy man. Lori, however, is just a regular person, and she feels like because of it. In fact, she goes back to her room and cries. While Saxon gives Lockie a rah-rah speech about going after what he wants and other macho guy. Tim sits in bed next to Victoria. Victoria talks about how perfect their life is, and that's all because of Tim. But Tim's face says it all. He's worried about Shokel and the article. The next episode kicks off with Kate and Jacqueline still talking about Lori. Turns out, Lori had a divorce and she has to pay her husband alimony. What's more, Lori's daughter Ellie has apparently started misbehaving, and Lori's career also seems to have stalled. Their gossip sesh is interrupted by Lori, and it looks like they genuinely do care about her. I think. The next morning, Lockie wakes up in Saxon's room and sees Saxon's bare ass. Not the ideal morning routine. While everyone wakes up, Guy Talk tells Mook to meet him for lunch. He wants to tell her something. At breakfast, Tim is waiting for a call from Kenneth, while Kate recognizes Victoria and tries to strike a conversation. But Victoria does not remember her, which is kinda awkward. Lockie says Victoria was rude to Kate, but Victoria doesn't care. Anyway, Jacqueline and her friends are then met by the hot employee, Valentine, who tells them what they'll be up to today. And since Lori is single, her friends urge her to go after him. While the Ratliffs get their daily schedule, Pornchai and Belinda agree to share their special massage treatments with each other before discussing things further. While the rest of the Ratliffs enjoy their day, Victoria's a bit of a pill popper by the way, Tim still hasn't gotten a call from Kenneth, and he's worried. Pornchai and Belinda exchange treatments, Lori flirts with Valentine, and Rick goes to the soft-spoken and calm Dr. Amrita for a meditation session because Chelsea insisted on it. So he tells Amrita about how his mom was a drug addict and that his dad was murdered. Fun stuff, huh? Amrita says that talking can help the situation, but Rick says there's no situation to solve. He knows who he is, which is no one, and that's all there is to it. and I believe him for some reason. While the Ratliffs mess about, Belinda sees Pornchai shirtless and is straight thirsting over him.
Oh, my stomach. Now my stomach. Your stomach.
Get a grip, girl! Fast forward to lunch, Guy Talk says he likes Mook and asks her out in a very nice and respectful way. And he gets rejected in a nice way too. Ouch. While Chelsea ditches Rick to hang out with Chloe, Lori, Kate, and Jacqueline talk about their physical test results with Valentine, and realize he's a bit of a flirt. We also see more of their jealous sides, which is interesting. Chloe and Chelsea then hang out, talking about their old partners. Saxon walks by and thinks Chloe is cute. Meanwhile, Lockie is having a very nice conversation with Piper about God and all that. Until he asks if she's a virgin. Apparently, Saxon said that, and Piper is pissed. We then see Chloe and Chelsea at a shop, looking at some stuff. Meanwhile, Guy Talk is talking to Valentine when a car rushes into the resort. Turns out to be two robbers who robbed the store Chelsea and Chloe are at. Guy Talk tries stopping them, but gets clobbered in the head, and the robbers escape. Later, Chelsea hugs Rick, and it seems like he does care about her. Guy Talk also meets Mook, and seems much happier after that. At dinner that night, Rick is forced into having dinner with Chloe and Greg, which is less than ideal for him. While Piper and Saxon throw some shade back and forth, Rick and Greg talk, and it's obvious they both got their money from shady schemes. At least we know Greg definitely had a hand in killing Tanya. The Ratliff family dinner is then interrupted by Tim, finally getting a call from Kenneth. We then see Kun Silata herself step up to the stage to sing, and Auntie's still got it. Meanwhile, Tim talks to Kenneth, who basically says that everything about their illegal scheme has been leaked. The FBI are after Kenneth, and Tim is almost definitely screwed too. Tim, as you can imagine, doesn't take this news very well. After Kun Silata's performance, she talks to Jacqueline and her friends, saying she's going to visit her husband in Bangkok. And Rick overhears her. Later, it's Lori and Kate's turn to gossip about Jacqueline. They talk about Jacqueline's plastic surgeries, her competitiveness, how vain she is. They also mention how she's married to someone 10 years younger than her, and that Jacqueline barely ever sees him. We then see Rick tell Chelsea he'll be going to Bangkok for a few days, before they start bumping uglies. The episode ends with Tim making another call. He needs a really good lawyer. Episode 3 kicks off with Victoria having a weird dream about a tsunami coming. Then she wakes up and sees Tim on the phone. He's doing some damage control over this whole show-cal thing. The next morning, Rick talks to Kun Sitala. He praises her performance, pretending to be a producer. Rick says his director wants to meet Kun Silata and gets her card, agreeing to meet in Bangkok. Amrita then approaches Rick, reminding him of their follow-up session, and he's not thrilled about it. We then see Valentine meet Jacqueline and her friends again, and Jacqueline insists Lori have a fling with him. In fact, Jacqueline even books Valentine for Laura, so that's nice, right? Pornchai then meets Belinda and tells her that they're going to talk about all the different treatments she goes through today at dinner. And Belinda likes the sound of that. Meanwhile, Tim keeps getting calls at breakfast. He tries to ignore them, but he has to take them eventually. He learns that there are 2 FBI agents at his office, and his lawyer tells him not to say a thing for now. Anyway, before Kun Sitala leaves, she thanks Guy Talk for his bravery, and Guy Talk offers himself if she ever needs extra security. Back with Tim, he's stressing out big time. You see, Saxon works with Tim, which means there's a real chance he could find out about the show-cal stuff. So Tim forces everyone to hand their devices over, and he even does it himself. Saxon complains to Lockie about it, but Lockie's got his posture correction session, which means he has to go. While Jacqueline keeps egging Lori to hit on Valentine, Guy Talk continues his very wholesome pursuit of impressing Mook, and lands a date. We then see Rick talking to Amrita, and it sounds like he wants revenge for his dad's murder. Did Kun Silata's husband have something to do with it? While Tim is stressing, Piper goes to the monastery and books a meeting with the monk she wants to see. Luang por tira. Belinda and Tori enjoy their treatments, but Lockie isn't having such a good time. It's not really his thing. Meanwhile, Chelsea is hanging out with Chloe when Rick steals her away. He wants to get some weed. Saxon sees his chance and sits next to Chloe, starting a conversation. Outside, Guy Talk gets a harsh reality check from Sitala's bodyguards. You see, resort manager Fabian wanted to fire Guy Talk for letting the robbers in, but Sitala is super nice, so she let him stay. They then call him a coward and leave. Ow. Anyway, after getting some weed, Rick says he wants to see a snake show. While Tim takes one of Victoria's sleeping pills, Rick feels really sad about the snakes being stuck in cages. So he sets them free, and one of them bites Chelsea. She has to be rushed to the hospital and Rick follows her. But Chelsea's alright and she makes it to dinner that night with Chloe and Greg. Chelsea then says that Chloe and Greg have invited her and Rick on a yacht party tomorrow, which Rick just hates. Over with Jacqueline and the Gossip Girls, Lori and Jacqueline are stunned to hear that Kate's husband is a Republican and that she herself is an independent. She also goes to church regularly, which Lori and Jacqueline clearly find interesting. On the other side of the restaurant, Belinda goes up to Greg and asks if they've met before, saying she saw him at the other White Lotus. Greg says no. He also goes by the name Gary now, but Belinda knows he's hiding something. Over with the Ratliffs, while Tim is sleeping in his room, Saxon also got invited to this yacht party by Chloe, who he then exchanges flirtatious looks with. Sometime later, Guy Talk is informed that he has a meeting with Fabian tomorrow. He might be in trouble. While Chelsea says she loves Rick, even though he got her bitten by a snake, Pornchai walks Belinda to her room. And it looks like the two are starting to like each other. That's when Belinda hears a weird noise outside of her room. Meanwhile, Kate sees Jacqueline and Lori talking. It's Kate's turn to be gossiped about. The episode ends with Tim taking another one of Victoria's sleeping pills, but he doesn't tell her. The following episode begins with Jacqueline leaving her husband Harrison a message. He's kinda been ignoring her. Meanwhile, Belinda talks to her son Zion, yep, that's him, and he says he'll be there tomorrow. Belinda is excited before she hears that weird noise again. Guy Talk then goes to a meeting and learns that he has to go to the shooting range for gun practice because they'll be having guns now. Back with the Ratliffs, Tim is now popping 2 sleeping pills at a time and is hiding it from everyone. At breakfast, Chelsea convinces Rick to come to the yacht party by crying. Maybe he is a softie, like really deep down. Over with Jacqueline, she's frantically checking her phone and complains about Harrison, which amuses her friends. Jacqueline then decides they'll have fun today and asks Valentine a spot they can go. So Valentine tells them and they get ready to party. Meanwhile, Amrita bumps into Rick and tells him that his story has moved her and that he can achieve peace and escape the cycle of violence he's stuck in. Damn. Anyway, we see the Ratliffs make it to Chloe and Greg's boat. Only Saxon is happy to be there. Everyone else thinks it's a drag. Rick and Chelsea show up soon after, and Tim uses this as an opportunity to steal all of Victoria's sleeping pills. He is literally an addict now. Meanwhile, Jacqueline and the girls come to a horrible conclusion. The place Valentine sent them is filled with old people. Jacqueline is not having it, so they all leave. While Belinda talks to Pornchai about knowing Greg, Piper drops a bomb on Lockie. She's not here for her thesis. Actually, she wanted to check the monastery out because she wants to stay there for a year after graduation. Piper says she's going to reveal this at dinner tonight, so she needs Lockie's support. Lockie is then snatched away by Saxon, who decides he's going to show Lockie the art of hitting on older women. And he does just that. Anyway, while Rick is having a miserable time, Tim is high out of his mind and is saying some crazy stuff to complete strangers. While Victoria realizes her sleeping pills are gone, Jacqueline and the girls grab Valentine and hijack him. He's going to have to show them a good time. Back on the boat, Piper thanks Tim for making an effort, and Tim gets overly emotional about how much he loves her. Oh yeah, he zooted. While Victoria throws a fit about losing her pills, Greg watches Saxon getting cozy with Chloe, and he doesn't like it. Over with Rick, Chelsea confronts him again about why they're here, so he finally tells her. Kun Silata's husband, a man named Jim Hollinger, killed Rick's dad. Rick's dad was an honest man helping the people of Thailand when he disappeared one day. And Rick's mom told him that Jim was the one who did it. So now Rick's going to see him. To do what? Well, he doesn't really know yet. Chelsea just hugs him. Meanwhile, Valentine leaves the ladies at a market, saying he'll meet up with them in an hour. Unfortunately for them, some kids ambush them with water guns, and they're merciless. They have to hide in a store, but the kids aren't giving up on them. Over with Belinda, she finally decides to do some research and realizes that Tanya is dead, and that this man is indeed Greg, and that Greg has been refusing to answer any questions about the situation. Speaking of Greg, Chloe asks him if she can borrow the boat for the full moon party tonight, and he says yes. Greg then has a chat with Tim, and they both are clearly hiding from things in their lives. The ship docks, and Saxon says he and Lockie are going to the full moon party, which means Piper has to tell her parents about the monastery by herself. Chelsea then begs Rick not to go, but he says he has to. So Chelsea decides to go to the full moon party. Jacqueline and her friends, meanwhile, finally make it to the club and meet Valentine and his friends. Back with the rat lifts, Tim says he needs a moment before he goes and asks for his phone back. And it's not looking good. Meanwhile, Guy Talk takes out the gun issued to him and he looks at it. Before Mook shows up. She's all dolled up because she's dancing tonight and she is stunning. Guy Talk reminds her about their date tomorrow and decides to walk her back. Meanwhile, Tim gets some terrible news. Kenneth is cooperating with the FBI, who have frozen all of his assets. They could even take his house. Tim's lawyer says the best thing to do is plead guilty and cut a deal. He'll only have to do a few months in prison. Tim responds by cussing his lawyer out before he spots Guy Talk's gun and takes it. Guy Talk returns to see his gun is missing. Oh, he's in deep now. Anyway, while Tin returns to dinner and Rick heads to Bangkok, Greg starts doing some research of his own on Belinda and finds out about her son, Zion. Oh, please, no. Episode 5 starts with Guy Talk looking for his gun. So he checks the security footage and realizes that Tim took it. Meanwhile, Piper breaks the news to her parents. She wants to move to Thailand for a year. Her parents are shocked, and Victoria shows just how disconnected from reality she is.
You want to live in Taiwan?
Guy Talk comes to confront Tim, but he's struggling to find the courage to do it. Meanwhile, Chloe tells Chelsea she wants to smush booties with Lockie. She just wants some attention. Chelsea says she could never cheat, but Chloe starts convincing her to. What a loser. Saxon also encourages Lockie to get laid by Chloe, and he's going to try his luck with Chelsea. While Rick makes it to Bangkok, Jacqueline and her friends start dancing with Valentine and her friends. We then see Belinda, and Fabian tells her that Greg was asking about her, which makes Belinda panic. While Victoria tries to understand Piper's decision, the pills have Tim totally out of it. And Guy Talk is looking for a chance to confront him. Belinda goes and tells her whole theory about Greg to Fabian, who doesn't buy it at all. Tim goes to the bathroom. Guy Talk confronts him about the gun, but Tim plays dumb and just leaves. Lockie and Saxon head to the full moon party with Chloe and Chelsea, and Rick meets up with Frank, an old friend. Guy Talk is worried sick about the gun, but he doesn't tell anyone about it, and Tim is still high as hell. He tells Piper about his days as an altar boy before he starts singing. Back with Lockie and Saxon, Chloe brings them some drugs, and Lockie takes one, which kind of pisses Saxon off because he doesn't do drugs. But Chelsea and Chloe pressure him into doing it, and they head out to party. Rick then talks to Frank at the bar before he hands Rick a black duffel bag. Wonder what's in there? Jacqueline and her friend's night out is disturbed by the girlfriend of one of Valentine's friends. They decide to ditch the club and take the party back to the villa, even though Kate thinks it's a bad idea. Belinda then tells Pornchai about the whole Greg thing and promises to keep her safe. She then asks him to stay the night because she feels unsafe, and he does. While Piper meditates, Jacqueline's group parties hard at the villa, and Lockie and Em party hard at the party. And things get crazy. Frank then goes on this insane monologue about his promiscuous activities in Thailand that led up to him finding religion. And if I said any of this stuff, we would get demonetized. So look it up if you want to, but it's crazy. Meanwhile, Kate finally manages to wrap the party up with Valentine and his friends, and she's relieved. Jacqueline and Lori, though, they had the time of their lives. While Pornchai and Belinda get jiggy with it, Chelsea rants to Chloe about how Rick is talking about his pain and his mood, and how it's never about her. Chloe just tells her to forget all that, saying they need to get freaky with Saxon and Lockie. Rick says he'll need Frank tomorrow night and says goodbye. We then see Lori passed out drunk, while Jacqueline lets Valentine in, and they start banging uglies. Finally, we see what Rick's friend gave him. A gun! Oh boy. While Lockie, Saxon, Chloe, and Chelsea all get a little bit freaky with each other, Tim writes an Alt F4 note and puts the gun to his head. But Victoria shows up, so he hides the gun. He tells Victoria he's under a lot of pressure, but she says he's already won at life. If only she knew. Tim then puts the gun down and prays. Episode 6 starts with Tim playing out the self-delete scenario in his head, and he just can't deal with it. So he puts the gun in a drawer and goes to bed. While Guy Talk is worried sick about the gun, Kate sees Valentine leaving the villa super early and knows Jacqueline cheated on her husband. The next morning, Saxon wakes up on the boat and he's putting together what happened last night. Zion finally makes it to the resort, but Belinda needs a minute. She's still in bed with Pornchai. Awkward! We then see Guy Talk's superior officer tell him to bring his gun for practice after work. Oh, that's bad news. Back in the boat, Chloe has a fight with Greg on the phone and then tells Chelsea that she got jiggy with both Saxon and Lockie last night. While Chelsea talks to Rick on the phone, Saxon has some coffee and realizes he got up to some weird last night. Lockie can't remember a thing though. At breakfast, Kate tells Lori about Valentine sleeping with Jacqueline. While Jacqueline talks to her husband on the phone, Lori crashes out over the Valentine thing, saying how Jacqueline was pushing him onto her and how psychotic this is. Valentine then shows up and Lori gives him the cold shoulder. Belinda and Zion also have breakfast, and Fabian shows up to let them know he'll be singing tonight, and he's super nervous about it. Saxon and Lockie make it to their family, and Victoria tells them about Piper's plan. Saxon agrees with his parents, but Lockie supports her decision. Victoria and Tim are going to check the monastery out, and Piper begs Lockie to come with them, and he does. Meanwhile, Greg accuses Chloe of sleeping with one of the Ratliff brothers, before telling her to bring them over to his place tonight. Why? Because he needs Chloe's help with something. And it won't be good. Anyway, Pornchai and Belinda discuss opening a spa together while Rick meets with Sitala. Rick is posing as a producer, trying to get Sitala to act in a movie. He sweet talks her before saying his director wants to meet Sitala at her own house so he can get to know her. It takes some pushing, but Sitala agrees. We then see Piper take her parents to meet the famous Luang Por Tira. Piper meets him first and explains how she's different from her family, and they don't understand any of this, before asking him to talk to her parents. Of course, Luang Por Tira agrees. So Tim goes in to have a chat with him. At the resort, Guy Talk meets Mook and says their date for tonight is still on. Guy Talk then sees Saxon leaving his villa. This could be his chance to find his gun. While Chelsea tells Saxon he's a soulless loser, Tim talks to Luang Por Tira. After a brief chat, Tim asks him about what happens after they die. And Luang Por Tira says they all return to the collective unconscious, where there is no suffering. And Tim is moved. Back at the resort, Guy Talk makes his way into the Ratliff's villa to find his gun, and Lori confronts Jacqueline about Valentine. Jacqueline denies the whole thing, but now we have some serious tension between the friends. Meanwhile, Tim approves Piper's plan to stay there. Victoria says she'll approve it too, if Piper can spend one night here. Piper agrees, and Lockie says he'll stay with her. Supportive brothers are the best. At the same time in Bangkok, Rick meets Frank and asks for his help with the whole Sitala thing. Frank says he won't help Rick kill anyone, but Rick says he just wants to have a chat with Jim. I hope it stays a chat. Back with Guy Talk, he manages to find his gun and leave the villa just as the Ratliffs are making their way back. Victoria then fights with Tim about letting Piper stay at the monastery before she goes on a ramble about how she wouldn't be able to live if they lost everything. This is horrible news for Tim because, they're about to lose everything. Over at the pool, Chloe shows up and drops a bombshell on Saxon. While Lockie was boning her last night, he was also pleasing Saxon. Oh, that's disgusting. She then promises not to talk about it if Saxon comes to her party tonight. Oh, and Jacqueline is mad at her friends now. Over at the monastery, Lockie is meditating with Piper and the other students. Unfortunately, this only does one thing. It brings his memory back about last night and what he did with Saxon, and now he's sick. While Guy Talk does some shooting practice, Greg sees Belinda and invites her to his house, saying they should talk. Belinda declines, so Greg says he can come by at any time, and now she's scared. While Tim thinks about ending Victoria and himself at the same time, Saxon tells him about the dinner party at night, and Tim agrees to join him. Meanwhile, Rick and Frank make it to Sitala's house, and Rick finally lays eyes on the man that killed his father. Whew, here we go. The next episode starts with Rick finally meeting Jim, and he's locked in. They sit down for a chat, and it gets awkward immediately. You see, Rick told Sitala that the part in the movie was based on her, which makes it super awkward when Frank says this.
She is a former prostitute.
Somehow, they salvage that situation and keep it moving. Piper and Lockie are still at the monastery, while the rest of the Ratliff family heads out to Greg's party. Zion convinces Belinda to go too, saying he'll protect her. Jacqueline and her friends then sit down for dinner, and the tension is palpable. Meanwhile, Rick convinces Jim to have a private chat with him while Frank and Sitala discuss business. The Ratliffs then make it to the party, and the place is buzzing. Chelsea destroys Saxon again, calling him shallow and all of that, before she tries to reach Rick. Saxon then grabs Tim, who was talking to Greg. While Rick talks to Jim and prepares his gun, oh no, Lockie and Piper are still at the monastery. and Lockie hates it. Lockie might be miserable, but Guy Talk's on a date with Mook, and he's having a great time. That is, until Guy Talk tells Mook he's not getting promoted and hates violence. Mook is disappointed. She thought Guy Talk had more ambition. Back at dinner, Jacqueline and her friends have a situation. Lori thinks Jacqueline is a scumbag for sleeping with Valentine, but Kate and Jacqueline think Lori's just projecting her failure in life onto them. So Lori gets up and leaves to watch a Muay Thai fight Valentine invited her to. Back at the party, Greg pulls Belinda aside while Saxon does the same to Tim. Saxon asks him what's going on and if something is wrong at work. Since Saxon's whole career is tied to Tim, if Tim goes down, Saxon goes down with him. But Tim says it's nothing, lying through his teeth. Meanwhile, Greg tells Belinda that he's devastated about what happened to Tanya and that he's only here to get away from the noise of lawyers and stuff. He then offers Belinda $100,000 to open up her own spa. In exchange, Belinda stays quiet about him. Belinda says she'll consider the offer, grabs Zion, and leaves. While Sitala and Frank watch her old movies, Rick talks to Jim. Rick tells Jim all about how he killed Rick's dad, and Jim doesn't remember. Rick pulls out his gun, but he can't bring himself to shoot. So he flips Jim's chair over, grabs Frank, and hotfoots out of there. Some revenge that was. Meanwhile, Mook and Guy Talk are at the same fight Valentine and Lori are at. While Lori gets cozy with one of Valentine's buddies, Guy Talk sees Valentine's friends and realizes something. Guy Talk was talking to Valentine when the robbers drove in, and the robbers looked like his friends. Which means Valentine set the whole thing up. What? This jackass? Anyway, Lockie and Piper talk, and Lockie says he likes this place. In fact, he wants to join Piper and stay here for a year too. But Piper doesn't seem to like that idea. Anyway, Chloe then shows up and makes an unconventional request of Saxon. Apparently, Greg wants to see Saxon, bone Chloe. Saxon is disgusted and says no, leaving. Chelsea leaves too, saying she has to call Rick. Speaking of Rick, he and Frank make it out unscathed. Rick then says he couldn't bring himself to hurt an old pathetic man like Jim. So he and Frank decide to spend the night partying like they used to. Meanwhile, Zion tells Belinda to take the money. It's either that or Greg might actually hurt them. Kate tells Jacqueline she's in the wrong a bit too, but Jacqueline's too much of a narcissist to accept that. Saxon then walks Chelsea home and says he can be spiritual and deep like she wants to. So Chelsea gives him a meditation session and some books before telling him to go away. While Chelsea keeps calling Rick, he's out there getting rowdy with Frank. Meanwhile, Lori gets down and dirty with one of Valentine's friends, who immediately asks her for money to help out his mother. That's when his girlfriend shows up, and Lori has to escape through the window. While Rick and Frank bring some girls back to Rick's apartment, Tim makes up his mind. Since Saxon and Victoria can't live with him in prison, he'll take them both out before offing himself. But when he goes to get the gun, it's gone. And now, Tim has no way to get out of this. The final episode of Season 3 starts with Piper and Lockie taking some more Buddhist classes. Rick then gets up, sees Frank's bender is still going, and just leaves. Guy Talk and Mook meet outside, and Guy Talk tells her he knows who did the robbery and he's going to report them. Meanwhile, Jacqueline apologizes to Lori, saying she wants to be friends and that they'll talk later. On their way back, Piper tells Lockie to not come with her to the monastery. Why? Because she doesn't want to be blamed for screwing up Lockie's life. I mean, I get it. Zion says Belinda should take Greg's money and start a spa with porn chai. Belinda says it won't be enough, so Zion tells her to ask for $1 million instead. He'll go with her to negotiate. Oh boy. Over with the Ratliffs, Piper makes a shocking admission. She realizes she can't live eating bland food with no AC for a whole year. Think about it. She brought them all this way for this thing, and one night was enough to make her change her mind. Piper says she feels pathetic, which she is, and she absolutely should feel that way, but Victoria just consoles her with some rich people's garbage. And Tim realizes he'll have to add Piper to his hit list. Meanwhile, Lockie and Saxon finally talk about what happened after Saxon's been ignoring him this whole time. Saxon just asks him to drop it forever and heads to the beach. Guy Talk overplays his hand and kinda sorta confronts Valentine about his friends. Back with Saxon, he's done reading one of Chelsea's books. Oh, hey, look, Rick is back. Chelsea runs into his arms, and Saxon can only watch in jealousy. Saxon then talks to Chloe, but it looks like that offer is off the table too now. Meanwhile, Tim asks Lockie if he thinks he could live without money, and Lockie says he could. Tim then sends Lockie out to have some fun. Later, Valentine approaches Guy Talk and begs Guy Talk to not rat on him. If he does, Valentine and his friends will lose everything. Fabian then shows up and Guy Talk tips. Back with him, he picks some fruit with poisonous seeds, makes sure his family won't get to their phones until they're on the boat back home, and takes the poisoned seeds out of the fruits. We then see Belinda and Zion meet Greg. Zion is a business major, so he starts negotiating with Greg and gives him one hell of a counteroffer. Unfortunately, Belinda can't deal with the idea of blood money, so she gets up and leaves, ending the negotiation. But actually, it's just a tactic to make Greg budge and pay them the money. Belinda, you genius. Meanwhile, Tim puts the seeds in a blender, shreds them, and then puts the blender away. Later that evening, Guy Talk meets Mook and tells her he's thinking of quitting. He can't bring himself to hurt someone. Mook says he's being too idealistic and cancels their date. Apparently, no ambition is a turnoff, even though Guy Talk is doing it because of his Buddhist beliefs in nonviolence. Fast forward to dinner, and Tim says he wants to make pina coladas for everyone tonight in celebration of their last night on vacation. I think we all know what he's gonna do with those blended seeds now. Rick is free of his burden now and plans to spend his life with Chelsea, and she loves that idea. We then see Lori go on this huge monologue about how jealous she was of her friends and how shameful she was of her own failures. But now she's had an epiphany. She's just happy to spend time with her friends and is happy that they're happy. With that, the girls spend their last night drinking and laughing, like best friends do. Meanwhile, Tim makes the poison pina coladas, or poison coladas, for everyone except Lockie, since he said he could live without money. But when they start drinking, Tim can't deal with it. So he makes them stop, saying the coconut milk is bad. And so he goes to bed, with reality waiting to smack him in the face tomorrow. The next morning, Sitara and Jim make it back to the resort. And Guy Talk can't bring himself to snitch on Valentine. So he tries to resign, but his boss stops him, telling him to really think about it. We then cut to Belinda and Zion, and what do you know? Greg sent the money. And they are ecstatic. Meanwhile, Lockie decides to make himself a protein shake and does it without cleaning the blender. Meaning he's getting a healthy dose of those poison seeds. Oh no. Meanwhile, Rick is ready to leave this place and have his happily ever after when Jim shows up. He says Rick's mom lied and that his dad was no saint, and basically said he did Rick a favor by killing him. Rick then gets up and leaves as Jim sends his bodyguards after him. Back with Lockie, the poor bastard drinks his shake. Tim is sleeping and everyone else leaves for breakfast. But Lockie? He starts throwing up by the pool and just lays on the ground. Belinda then leaves Zion, who has a session with Amrita. Rick finds Amrita and says he needs a session, and Amrita says she'll find him as soon as she's done with Zion. Lockie, meanwhile, has visions of drowning and all of that before he just passes out. Tim wakes up, sees the blender, and realizes what happened. He tries waking Lockie up, but it's too late. Lockie's a goner. While Rick sees Jacqueline and her friends meet Sitala and Jim, Belinda talks to Porn Chai. And she totally dumps him, saying her circumstances have changed and she can't commit to anything right now. Which is exactly what Tanya did to her. I guess money really does make you a bad person overnight. Meanwhile, Rick loses his mind. Chelsea tries to stop him, but Rick walks up to Jim, snatches his gun, and shoots him. Sitala holds Jim's body and makes a devastating confession.
He's your father. He told me. He's your father.
Yep, Jim was actually Rick's dad. Oh, he could have said that earlier. Now it's a mess. Rick's in a shootout with Sitala's bodyguards, and Guy Talk hears the shots. So he grabs his gun and rushes to the scene. And now we're at the start of episode 1. Rick manages to take out the bodyguards, but one of them shot Chelsea. No! Rick tries to save her, but she's gone. He picks her body up and carries her away. Guy Talk then shows up and on Sitala's orders shoots Rick twice, taking him out. Damn. Back with Tim, Lockie wakes up and he's alive. After that, it's time to leave. Tim tells his family things are going to change and they'll get through it as a family. I don't know if they will. Jacqueline and her friends are okay, and Greg is back on his bull. Guy Tuck got the job as Sitala's new bodyguard, and Mook seems really pleased about that. The season ends with Zion and Belinda speedboating away from Thailand because they're rich now, and poor Pornchai just gets left behind. And that was a recap of The White Lotus. Where do you think the story will go next? What characters are gonna reappear in the next season? That's up for you to speculate on, so feel free to leave a comment down below. And of course, a very special thank you to everyone who watched, and check out the next video on screen. All right, thank you so much. Toodaloo.